Hi guys, and thank you for tuning in. This video is going to be me briefly talking about the tracks that are on my album. I'm actually looking at my laptop here, just slightly off camera, just with the tracks and stuff, because a few people have asked me after the question and answer session I did a little while ago, and excuse me, I've got a bit of a cold at the moment, so not in the best form, and they were asking, you said some of the tracks could be ranging from Talk Talk, Devo, Blade Runner. What do you mean Blade Runner? You're not making a movie, you're making an album. So, and I've had a few other people saying, is it going to be drum solos? Is it going to be this? Is it going to be that? So, this little clip is just kind of talking a little bit about the album, how far I've got, the tracks, and so on and so forth. So, like with any solo album, it's kind of it's like a vanity project. It's your baby, it's your thing, and I've been traveling with this and my other laptop for 5 years or so, on tour with Lorena McKinnett, or at the studio with Little Men or whatever, and I've always got it with me, and any little ideas I think of I quickly try and program in and get it in there, or sing it into memos or something. That's what a lot of people do. Songwriters will sit on a train and just quickly either type or say some lyrics or whatever into their memo thing on their phone. And I was doing a similar thing. So I sort of ended up with, well, firstly I had an idea that I, at some point, always wanted to make a solo album, because I'm always playing on lots of other people's music, which I dearly love, and it's great. And gained so much experience, but eventually I'd want to make my own record. So all these little ideas I was sort of catching, as I say, on my laptop and so on. And at some point, maybe about 3 years ago, I thought, right, it's time to accumulate these ideas and just see where I'm going with them. Otherwise they're just going to sit in there, or on my phone or laptop, and they're not going to go anywhere. So it wasn't this great thing that I thought, I must get an album out, I must compete in the market and whatever. It's not about that at all. It was like the time was right. I thought, okay, all these ideas, time to put them all together and start making songs or whatever, musical collages or whatever out of these ideas. So that's what I started to do. So it was really a case of, I've got ideas, let's get them out. And let's get people listening to them. Let's get some friends playing on them. I've got a few favours from people that I can say, hey man, fancy coming and play bass or guitar, or I was going to say drums then, or singing or producing this for me. So it's kind of a really, it's my album, but I really enjoy pulling people that I know and I've worked with over the years in to help out. People I trust, people I dearly love musically, and, as friends. So that's the idea of the whole album, and it's not going to be a drum fest particularly. I'm looking more for the drums to be, at times they'll obviously be doing things that are big and kind of flash and taking the stage, obviously, but I want it to be more about how the drums sit in the music, what they allow the music to do, how they allow the music to breathe, or how they push it or how they pull it back. A mood, and the sound of the drums is really important as well. And I'm using a combination of my vintage snares plus my 2 DW Collector's snares that I've talked about before. Most of the drum kit is usually, the main bulk of it is not my vintage, which is over there, my vintage Ludwig. It's mostly my DW Collectors with various toms, and I've got toms ranging from 8, 10, 12, 13 rack toms, and 14, 16, 18 floor toms, and an 18-inch bass drum and a 22-inch bass drum. So I've got a load of choices, and sometimes I'm mix and matching. Sometimes I'll be recording just the bass, snare and hat dry without any cymbals, or other toms, and then I'll put the toms and cymbals on top. Also, another thing I'm enjoying doing with this record is doing something that Peter Gabriel and Kate Bush did a long time ago, which was record albums without any cymbals. So they put them on later, or not at all. I think it's Peter Gabriel 4, I think it is, which is also known as Melt because of that cover. And Hounds of Love has no hi-hat or crashes or chinas or splashes or any cymbals. No plates at all. And I really like that. So I'm not necessarily doing that per se all the way through the album or all the way through some tracks. So sometimes I'll be using samples of explosions or type sounds, maybe something I get off my Lindrum, things like that, to make the feeling that you've just heard a cymbal as it goes into the next section. There's also going to be a lot of, which I've talked about before, I love the 80s idea, the Prince idea of putting a Lindrum track down and then the drummer tracking to the Lindrum, so you get the sound of the live drum and the electronics. I mean, that's where I got it from. I know since then everyone in their rabbit has done it. But that's, for me, that's where my influence came from, that and Gary Newman albums where he used to do a similar thing. So there's plenty of electronic synthetic, as they used to say, Syndrum, Lindrum, 808 type stuff on it, but with live drums on top. And I wanted it to be sometimes where people, when they've listened to, some friends have listened to stuff I've done so far, have been saying, is that a live drum now, or is that the program, or the electronic drums, which is which? And I kind of love that idea where people don't really know, and you get the idea of the electronics and acoustic living together, syncing together perfectly. And equally, if we look at the sound palette of the other instruments, I am using and programming a lot of it myself, and been using a lot of synths originally that were in GarageBand, a lot of Prophets, Moogs, analog things, Vox, Whirlies, of course, and Fender Rhodes, all the classics, piano, all the sort of classic things you would expect to use. But I also like putting maybe, let's think, something like almost Newman-esque, like Cars, strings, off of a Moog or whatever, put next to a Hammond organ, which is far more earthy, and it's got a far more religious vibe, that kind of Hammond. You hear a Hammond played well and they pull the drawbars out and get the Leslie spinning, and it's just like, whoa, So I like the fact that you've got something like that, which is kind of, when I say acoustic, I mean it's more seen in that world, whether it could be a church or a jazz club or something, next to this, sample that's from a synth, from a GarageBand or Logic or something, and you play that next to them, and then with a live kit with a really warm sound, and all of a sudden you've got this nice sort of juxtaposition, and then you put maybe another acoustic instrument on top of that, or a voice or something, and you start getting a nice, interesting kind of sound palette. The colours start to change, and something really interesting starts to happen. And to be honest, melodically, none of this album is going to have anybody stroking chins or anything. It's not about that, because I can't write that way. I'm a drummer, a rhythm consultant. I'm not a melodic genius, so a lot of the stuff is going to be quite straightforward, and easy to get melodically, certainly. But I think where hopefully I'm going to win people over is in the sounds and the choice of the sounds and the rhythms and the texture and the colours that we create from that sort of sound palette. That's what I'm going for, because when I listen to certain artists that I like that are in that ambient world, and I've been digging deeper and deeper, down into that ambient world, all that stuff has got no drums on it, and I absolutely love that, because I can just completely immerse myself into the sounds, and I think that's what's really important. There's no rhythm, some of them are out of time and they just kind of wander, and I think that's great. So that kind of music has inspired me electronically to make the sounds, and try and compose that way, because I haven't got a Hammond here and I haven't got a piano here, so I have to do it all on my laptop. But it also inspired me in a different way to stand back from that and think, okay, that's kind of conventional, people do that, that's how people make soundtracks, that's what you do. But I thought, well, I'm a drummer, that's not where I start. So my point is the drum kit, that's my starting point in rhythm. So just after Christmas last year, I started going to the studio, and it was in COVID, so Nick at the studio would just throw the keys out the door, and I would go in the studio on my own, and I'd get my laptop and my Focusrite, my interface, and get all the microphones in and mic up the drum kit, get my headphones on, and I'll just run a click. And I just recorded myself to a click, moving through different dynamics and different ideas. And I thought, instead of most of the time when I get an MP3, the song's written and I come and play the drums on top of that in a studio environment, I'm going to do it the other way around. So instead of the drums going on kind of last or in between or before or whatever, meaning the track's done and I have to play what's to that, I've got the chance to now make the drums be the starting point. And I just thought it was, one, it'd be confusing and difficult, and two, I really like the idea of it. So then the melodic idea has to come from the strength of what's already there with the drums, rather than, as I say, I'm playing on a song which is already kind of constructed and I play, which is brilliant, and I do it all of my life. I've been doing it, and that's cool. But I had the chance here to do my own thing, so that's what I did. So I'm just looking at the list here, and I know it doesn't help you because you can't hear them yet because it's not finished, but there's a track on the album called LN90, and that was very much done in that way, inspired by The Spirit of Eden by Talk Talk and Laughing Stock by Talk Talk. It's their last sort of 2 albums, I think. I'm playing drums in a very broken kind of way, and also actually albums like Jack Johnson and Silent Way and some of those Miles Davis albums, the way they were kind of spliced together from jams. I kind of like that, but I wasn't doing that idea, but I just kind of like the way these things would move through movements, a bit like a classical piece, but it was just done through splicing technology. So I thought, okay, well, I'm not, as I say, I'm not going to do that, but I'm going to take the idea of the Talk Talk ideas and the free feel of some of those Miles albums and just have little moments, and don't even count the bars, just literally let the click go, and I'll compose to the click with nothing else around. And I found it really inspiring. So LN90 was a track that was written in that way, and I'd bring it home and I'd start adding all the stuff to it and making a song from it. So I did that with that one. One which may not make the album is another one called another one like this. It's called All the Balloons Have Gone, because one day I come out in the garden in the old house and I looked up and there was just all these balloons in the sky. It's like, wow. And went back in the house, done some stuff, come back out, and all of a sudden they're gone. It's like, how can that happen? They don't move that fast. Or maybe they were never there. Ooh. But that's Balloons Have Gone is that kind of vibe. So again, starting with the drums first and then making the music come to that. But I've also got some what I'd call singles on it as well. I say singles because I mean the length. I don't mean they're surefire hits, but who knows? There's one called Twisted Technology, which has me through like a vocoder and different robot voice effects and stuff. Just a basic song about how I just think, technology is a brilliant thing, blah, 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 but it can get twisted and be used in other ways and what have you. It's not time to get into a debate here, but and that was inspired kind of by bands like New Music and Devo and people like that I listened to back in the day, and Gary Newman, I guess, to a certain degree.
What do you say to me? Goodbye.
I've got another one like that called Do What You Can, which is almost like a Parliament Funkadelic kind of vibe, Princey style vibe. Again, just a 3 minute kind of more single vibe. Just me and fat grooves, playing through it, and a bit of a vocal thing going on. There's another one called By My Side, which is another one which is kind of more dancey, more kind of upbeat kind of thing. There's a track on here which I can't wait to release, probably maybe the first single, which featured the late great James Lambeth, who unfortunately is no longer with us, but he recorded an amazing vocal on a song called Lose Control, which is pulling from like my early 80s Prince vibe and Devo and my new wave kind of touch, and he was really into all of that, and he came along and did some sessions, anyways, one session, and he completely nailed it. It was unbelievable. He came in and did just such a great job, and it was a great evening, and I know he was in great pain as well at the time. I don't know if he knew more at that time what was going on with him, but anyway, he was in great pain and he did a great job, and it was amazing. So I'll at some point release that in honour of James and his life.
You make me lose control. You make me lose control. You make me lose control.
There's a track called The Tree, which is a little bit like there's a track on a Gorillaz album on Demon Days, which kind of tells a story about this monkey life. I can't remember what I should have looked at before I started talking about it. When I say monkey stuff, it's like a narration over the top of this music about these monkeys that live there, and these people come along and ruin their life. And this one's called The Tree, and I want Fox, my son, to do some narration on it if I can. So, you know, that's kind of a more of a, if I was doing a live gig, I'd probably start with that. It'd be a really good way to start. And then I've got ones like, when I said Blade Runner, I was thinking Vangelis, that kind of electronics vibe. So I've got a song called Plus One, which doesn't mean plus one on the list, by the way. You know, you plus one, get in. But it's just called Plus One. I can't remember why. But, you know, it's kind of a really up-tempo 80s, new wave, kind of new romantic feel almost. But with a real sci-fi kind of thing. If you can imagine go through hyperspace with the stars flying past you as you go in Star Wars or Star Trek, it's that kind of vibe, you know. And then it could take you to a dystopian place like Blade Runner and stuff like that. It's just got that imagery, because I think that imagery is really important to have in your music, even if people don't quite get it. If it's in there from me, that's the main thing. I know it lives in there and it's got a place. So there's that. There's a Steve Reich, Philip Glass type idea. I've got a piece called As Snow. It's called As Snow because obviously it was snowing the day I wrote it. And it's just kind of an idea of simple melodic lines that we interweave together, and they come in 4 bars after each other or something, and they just layer, which is very much like the Steve Reich type idea. So that's where that came from. I've got a track on there with my a phone call my son made to me quite a while ago, about an old school spaceship that he'd found in when he was visiting Granny. It was in a local park or something, and I recorded the phone conversation, and I've taken snippets and I've wrote some music around it called Old School Spaceship. So Fox, my son, features on that, so that's brilliant. So there's that too. A track called Mirror That Hates, which sounds really harsh, doesn't it? But you know, that's again into that same kind of world of dystopian future and electronics and more intense drums and stuff like that. Another one I'll mention is Colours of the Day, which is probably my favourite track on the album. It means a lot to me. It's got a lot of sentimental, I've got a lot of sentimental attachment to the story that came around that song, and one day I'm sure I'll be able to talk about it and let that out. But Colours of the Day takes me to Talk Talk and their albums like Party's Over, The Colour of Spring, It's My Life. It's got those kind of vibes in it. It's not all electronic, it's got a Hammond organ on it which completely changed the sound, and at the moment it's got no vocals, but it will have vocals on it in the end. Talking of vocals, some of the vocals on the album may be done by me, but they'll be mostly talking narration ones or easy ones that I can harmonise and sort out. The rest of it will be done by other people. I've mentioned it to a few of my friends, we haven't nailed it down yet completely, but we will do soon. So we'll have some vocals on the record. And I'm going to add extra things like strings, and there's more guitar to go on the record, but I am getting there. But this gives you a bit of an idea of what we're looking at, hopefully. Quite a long video, but you know, I've been around the houses and tried to tell you a little bit of where this album is pulling from. I still can't tell people the title. Some people have asked me, but I'm guessing it probably will be Colours of the Day, because as I say, it's my favourite song. So, as I say, a long old video, but that's maybe getting inside my head a little bit so you can understand where my solo album is coming from, and I hope you're excited to hear it, because I'm excited for you to hear it. As usual, leave any comments down below. If you have any questions, please ask me about anything, about the album, the recording of it, or what mics we use, or anything, blah, 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 blah. Just let me know. Anyway, have a good day, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.